You hear the music and you know what time it is. I am KODX Factor, and this is another episode of The Jump Off. The Jump Off is here as part of the Game Night Lounge Media Network, and all the guests that appear on this show are part of the Game Night Lounge Media Network as well, or appear as part of the Game Night Lounge Media Network. It is now Wednesday. This is post E3. So we're going to be going back and spending a majority of part of this show going back and looking at the press conferences that took place beginning with this past Saturday. We're going to go look at each of the press conferences individually, give it a letter grade, look at all the highs and the lows that surrounded those press conferences. Look at what they announced. Did they satisfy us as gamers? Is there a lot of areas that they had to work on? There was a lot to talk about with this E3. Yes, they are vastly different than previous years. So yes, it did feel a little bit different. And we'll kind of go into that a little bit. And we'll kind of look at that. We'll go into the discussion about it and just kind of at least talk about and figure out what was going on that made this show different from previous years. And there was a lot to talk about. So let's begin. But before we start, I wanted to take a moment really quick to reflect. And if anybody here listening, listen to the GSN, the Gaming Sports News podcast that is going on, know exactly who I'll be referring to when I talk about this guy. I wanted to take a moment and just reflect on a dear friend of ours, a dear friend of the show, a dear friend of the network, whose name is Darkstar Merc, goes by Mario, who had passed away this past Saturday, leaving all of us in shock. So we spent a good deal of time reflecting and dealing with the loss of a dear, dear friend of ours. You know, we truly appreciate everybody that had reached out to us over this past few days. We took a lot of time off to kind of reflect on the life that Mario had lived. We are deeply saddened by the sudden loss of a great friend of ours. It was a natural death, so it wasn't anything that was that was out there that you're going to see homicide wise, nothing like that. It was nothing like that. It was all natural death, but he did go peacefully, which we can all be thankful to God for. But we know that God has a plan for everybody, and we know that Jesus has gained himself another angel in our dear friend Merc. So we would really, really appreciate everybody. We're going to give a quick moment of silence here for our dear friend and the loss of a great friend in Mario, who you guys know as Darkstar Merc. Thank you guys for that. So again, thank you guys, everybody who sent us messages over the past few days in regards to his passing. We greatly appreciate it. There's going to be a memorial service here locally for him this weekend. If you follow us on Facebook or you follow us individually, personally on Facebook or Twitter, you know where that will be and when. So we greatly appreciate it. A dear friend gone way too soon in his life. But let's take a look at this past weekend in regards to the press conferences and the beginning of E3 as it so started a little bit early. And the reason why I say this show is a bit different than previous years is because I don't know if it's due in part because of all the leaks that had transpired. It seemed like over the past 4 weeks we got nothing but game announcements, nothing but leaks from retailers, nothing but just internal leaks, like documents, placeholders, dates, game release. I mean, and some of those games didn't even come to fruition during the show, which was a little bit disappointing to me. But if they're holding those games off for a different show because of the leaks, I can understand. But we'll talk about that when we come to those particular publishers. But a lot of the leaks that had gone on before leading up to E3 actually turned out to be true. So let's take a look. Let's begin with EA, whose press conference pretty much kicked the show off with their EA Play event, which started on Saturday. And quite honestly, they didn't have anything that wowed us or surprised us. There was nothing they announced that said, oh, wow, I wasn't expecting that. Nothing. So EA, to me, had nothing that would make us jump out of our seat that said, oh, wow, this is E3. Had they held on to Battlefield, the release or the announcement of Battlefield and stuff like that, and held that for the show, would have probably made that show much more interesting. That show was boring. The pacing was terrible, and EA always has bad pacing when it comes to their shows. But the fact that they didn't have anything really, really exciting to announce. We all knew about Battlefield already. Sure, they showed off a little bit of gameplay for Battlefield, but that's great. We all know Battlefield. And then they spent a lot of time with their sports titles. So we got FIFA, NBA, Madden. And we still didn't even get a cover athlete for Madden. They couldn't even show us that. All we know is who got the Hall of Fame edition cover. We don't know who got all the rest of the covers. It could be the same person. It could not be. But when they showed the logo for Madden, there was a football player all shadowed out so you can't see who it was. Which leads me to say that they're not ready to announce the cover athlete yet, or they don't have one. And then they spend a great deal of time talking about FIFA. And the addition of, with the World Cup and stuff like that. Which if you're a FIFA fan, if you're a soccer fan, you may be thrilled with. But they spent a lot of time on that, and it was just like, okay, this is not really the press conference I was kind of expecting or looking forward to. You know what I'm saying? It didn't live up to any hyper expectations. So when I go back and I look at EA's press conference, you know what letter grade I give this? I give it a pure D-. I can't give it an F because Battlefield looked good. I was actually excited to see Battlefield. They led the show with that. But then everything else was a steady, steep dive after that. Battlefield looked good. It really, really did. I was excited for Battlefield. Look forward to it. But then everything after that, I was kind of like, eh. That's just it. You know, they have. I was expecting a lot more. I would have liked to have seen maybe some sort of like a Bad Company, not expansion, but a Bad Company announced. But, you know, I can understand because they got Battlefield 5 coming out why they wouldn't do something like that. But they didn't really go into anything else. That's why I give it a pure D-. EA probably had, and I'll go ahead and say it now, had the worst showcase of the entire event. It was just really, really lackluster. Didn't have much going for it at all. So then we come to day 2. And day 2 had 2 promising press conferences taking place that actually kind of left us a little bit excited. Microsoft started the day, and it ended with Bethesda. Now, let's go back and take a look at Microsoft. Now, if you listen to my pre-E3 warm-up show, a lot of what Microsoft announced came true to what I was expecting. We got a lot of great titles. And I'll say this, Microsoft went out and did nothing but showcase games, which it really, really needed to do. We didn't want to see much about hardware, even though they did open up and say, yes, they are working on a future Xbox. But we all kind of knew that because, you know, Sony's working on one as well. So we all know that they're working on future iterations of the console. But they went out and laid us with a barrage of games. Some that we knew about, some that we didn't know about. So they had a steady mix of solid announcements. Xbox had a good showing. I'll say that much. Xbox had a really, really good showing. The only thing I kind of wish that they maybe did a little bit more is a lot of these games, they could have brought some of the developers out and kind of discussed what they were, you know, what we were seeing. They brought them out for Forza Horizon 4, which we all knew was coming, you know, but they always bring those devs out. They brought Rod Ferguson out, and who kind of threw us for a loop a little bit because if anybody knows me, I'm a big Gears fan, a big, big Gears fan. So when I heard that there was a potential for a Gears 5 being announced and I saw Rod Ferguson walk out on stage, I was like, oh yeah, here we go. And then the first thing he announces was a mobile game, with partnership with the Funko Pop people. And it was called Funko Pop, or Gears Pop is what it was called. Which is essentially a mobile Gears of War game featuring the Pop figures, the Funko Pop figures. And you know what? It actually was very, very kind of cool looking anyway. They didn't show any gameplay. But it actually left me kind of like, okay, you know what? I actually really want to play that. One, because it's a Gears game that me and my son could play. And we could play together. Even though it is on mobile. So I kind of wish it was on console. Which they very well may, because they were talking about the expansion of platforms for that. So I can see that not necessarily being just on console, or not just on mobile, but being on console as well. Which if they did that, that would actually be really, really cool. And then they showed Gears Tactics, which is an RTS game set in the Gears universe before the events of the very, very first game. I was actually excited for that too. That actually looked really good. It's a PC-only game, at least as of right now. So, I mean, Gears Tactics, I was looking forward to it. I was like, you know what? Okay. This is a little bit different than the traditional Gears that we've been getting over the past number of years. This is something different, and I'm okay with that. I was actually okay with that. Thought it looked really, really good. Looked fun. Looked entertaining. And then he finished off with the announcement of Gears 5. And then he showed off a very, very little gameplay and a lot of cinematics, so you can kind of see where the story's kind of going with the next one. And I cannot wait to play that story. I cannot wait to play Gears 5. Now, obviously, we know there's going to be a lot to go in with multiplayer with that game, but they were very heavily focused on the story and the direction that Gears 5 was going. Looks really, really good. A number of years after the events of Gears 4. So you see a JD Phoenix, who's a bit older now, got the big, burly, brushy beard. Marcus seemed to have aged backwards. I don't understand how that happened. I look at Gears 4 and I was like, okay, there's a young JD, and then there's an old Marcus. And then, like, you see Gears 5, and it's like there's an older JD and a younger looking Marcus. So I don't know how that happened, but it happened. And the direction they're going with the story, I was actually very, very entertained. It looks like you're going to be taking, the story is going to be taking the reins of Kate, the female protagonist from Gears 4. You're going to be taking her over in Gears 5. It doesn't look like you're going to be playing around with JD. You very well may. It may be just a section of the game that's you're going to be playing as Kate. But from everything they showed, even gameplay-wise, was in the aspect of Kate. So I'm looking forward to that. They also showed, and this is kind of interesting to me, is a brand new Battletoads title for the Xbox One. They didn't show any gameplay. They just showed kind of like a little cartoony, cinematic trailer where a tongue came out and grabbed like this wall or whatnot. And then you show like the Battletoads eyes and the logo. And then Battletoads coming 2019. And features 3-player couch co-op and a few other features, which is awesome. So I'm kind of looking forward to see what they're doing with the new Battletoads. It looks like it's going to be still your traditional side-scroller, 2D with 3D environments. That's what it kind of looks like. So that was a big surprise. They also brought the game directors from Capcom that are working on the new Devil May Cry. They brought them out. And they showcased the first trailer for Devil May Cry 5. And for me, as a Devil May Cry fan, I was floored when I saw it. Not in a bad way, but a good way. I was actually really, really excited. But one thing fans got to notice, because I went back and I was sitting there reading fans' comments on it. I was looking at Twitter, and so many people did not have an idea, like really the direction that Devil May Cry 5, not necessarily was going story-wise, but who the characters were. Many people thought that the main character that they were watching in that trailer was Dante. That's not Dante. Everybody, just so you know, that character is not Dante. That's Nero, who you played with in number 4. And at the very, very end of that trailer, they showed Dante riding in on his motorcycle. Which, I will say this for every press conference that happened, please have the camera just strictly on the trailer until the trailer is completely finished. So many times I was watching these press conferences and the camera would pan away and it'd be a long stage shot with some crowd in the front. And then the trailer's still playing on the big screen that they were watching. And you can really, it's hard to make out if they had a release date, if there was something at the end of that trailer. It's hard to make that out because the camera pans out. Stop it! We got to be able to see the entire thing. Had people that were actually watching it on stream seen the end of that trailer clearly enough, they would have been like, okay, that's Dante. But so many people didn't see that or make it out clearly enough because the camera had panned away before that. So yes, that was Dante that you saw at the end of that trailer on the motorcycle, and that is Nero that you're playing with throughout the entirety of the game. So it looks like it's following Nero's story again, but with Dante included. Even the cover art that they showed at the end of that press conference, again, the camera was panned out, so it's probably hard to tell. You see Dante on the left, you see Nero in the middle, and then the female on the right side. So there's all three of them. Excuse me. So people that were upset because of the way that, there was a lot of people were upset because of the way that quote unquote Dante looked. If you looked at the end of the trailer when he was riding in on that motorcycle, he still had the long white hair. He had a beard now because he's getting a bit older, so he does have the facial hair going. But everybody thought that Nero was Dante, and his hair was cut short, it was white. They were like, oh, that's Dante. No, it's not. That's not Dante. That's Nero. So I think that fans just kind of had to get an idea or see that who those characters were. But again, as long as they could fix that panning out after the trailer's over with, if they stopped that, they would have probably have gotten that. They showed off some Battlefield 5, which, again, so we get more Battlefield 5. I was actually cool with that. Then they brought Todd Howard out on stage, and he showcased the first trailer for Fallout 76. Didn't really give a whole lot of details about it because obviously the Bethesda conference was taking place right after the Microsoft conference a few hours later, so they're probably going to give out more of the details about Fallout 76 at their own presser. But they revealed the trailer for Fallout 76. He announced that Fallout 4 was part of the Game Pass now. So, which is cool if you're a Game Pass owner. You know you have access to Fallout 4. But he showed the trailer, and then there wasn't much explanation because, honestly, when I saw it, I was like, okay, we're getting another traditional RPG-type Fallout game. That's how it appeared to me. Even with all the rumors that had taken place prior to E3 about the games being, or about Fallout being more of a survival game, online game, none of that showed through on their Xbox announcement. A lot of it did on their Bethesda one, but we'll talk about that here in a minute. So Microsoft showed off a slew of games. Some really, really exciting games. Games that I'm really looking forward to. They talked a lot in the way of their Game Pass. They're starting to bring third-party games into their Game Pass. I was actually happy to see that. Now, whether these third-party games are going to be accessible on Game Pass day one, they didn't really clarify that. I don't see many titles coming to Game Pass day one at all. Maybe, there may be some, but the fact that they're starting to come in now, we're getting big titles like The Division, which they showed off as well, which also looks good. And Fallout. Now that those are a part of Game Pass, there's a lot to look forward to if you have Game Pass. And then they showed off they actually started the show with a quick teaser for Halo Infinite. And Halo Infinite to me looked a little bit confusing. I couldn't tell if this was a follow-up to number 5. I couldn't tell if this was like a new iteration of the Halo universe, even though they did say you're going to be following the Master Chief. You couldn't tell where this game fell within the timeline. It was a quick cinematic. That was it. But I will say one knocker against Microsoft when it comes to their press conference. They didn't have a lot in the way of games coming out this year. It was nice to see them have Kingdom Hearts. They showcased Kingdom Hearts at their press conference. And it's finally coming to Xbox. But they did not have many games in the pipeline, or that they showed, that were coming out this year. The fact that Crackdown 3 was delayed until February of next year was a huge blow. They needed that to be this year. They needed that to be this year. Because what else do they have in the way? We Happy Few comes out in August. That's a studio that they announced that they had purchased. Which they had purchased, they went on to announce that they had purchased 5 new studios: Undead Labs, Ninja Theory, the Forza Horizon 4 team. I'm going blank here. There was a couple other studios that they purchased as well. Ninja Theory being one of the big ones. But all these studios already have games coming out. And Forza Horizon 4 is a first-party game that comes out this year, but that's really it. There's nothing else really coming out this year to really look forward to or say, I need an Xbox for this if you don't already have one. So if I had to give a letter grade to Microsoft, I would give them a B-. Because they showed a lot of great games. Third party, first party, it didn't matter. They showed a lot of great games. But the fact that nothing is really coming out in the way of this year, plus I think they could have done a little bit better with third-party titles for Game Pass. I would have loved to have seen that. But, you know, that's that's just me. And then a few hours after that press conference came Bethesda. Bethesda, to me, had an awesome show. They came out and showed off Rage 2 first. And they even popped shots at Walmart Canada for the leaks and say they couldn't hold on to a secret, which, you know, is kind of cool that they, you know, they're kind of laughing about it now. But they showed off a lot of Rage 2, some gameplay of Rage 2. It's starting to look pretty good. And right now, the fact that we didn't see Borderlands 3 at all at E3, Rage 2 is starting to take some of its thunder. Honestly, the folks over at Gearbox better pay attention to that, because Rage 2 right now, and it's coming out in February. But Bethesda then came out. They talked a little bit about Somerset that just came out, the ESO expansion. They came out and they talked about a VR Wolfenstein coming out, as well as the Switch Wolfenstein coming out. And they announced a sequel to Doom, which I was kind of hoping that they would, because it's getting near time. And yeah, again, I knew Doom was going to be coming out this year, but the fact that it's coming out next year, it leaves us something to look forward to next fall. And they're still putting out games for VR, which I was actually kind of happy to see. And I will say this, when they finally brought Todd Howard back out on stage, Todd Howard took the show over from there. Because quite honestly, nobody, like some of the devs that were on there, their interactions with each other were so off-key. Even the ones during the Prey DLC announcement were just kind of like, okay, this seems so off, but okay. And Todd Howard, and I know Todd Howard personally. I've met him. I've talked to him. Great guy. Funny to talk to. Really, really intelligent. Knows how to talk to a crowd. And knows how to present. And he took the stage and he started off by kind of making fun of his own company with how many times they've put out Skyrim on different platforms. And then they showed a video with the Key & Peele guy, and they showcased Skyrim being played on the Amazon Alexa, or the Echo. And folks, just like you, I was watching it and I was like, this isn't real. One, it's funny. I was cracking up while watching it. But then I tried it the next day because I have an Echo. I tried it. You know something? That is real. It works. And it works just like it did in the video. It's free, so you don't have to pay for it or anything like that. Essentially what it is, it's a way of you to sit there and talk with your Alexa. And you're essentially playing Skyrim D&D by yourself. That's how it plays. How you saw it in the video is how it plays. And the fact that actually was a real thing, I had to give them applause for that. Everybody I know, even by people I was watching with, knew this is a joke. They were even laughing about it. Everybody in the audience was laughing about it. It was a joke. But was it really? Because it sure enough was on the Amazon store where you could download it or actually activate it as a skill for your Echo. And the minute you do that, you can play. It functions the way it does. I had to give them applause for that. It was funny and just something different. And then they went into great detail about Fallout 76. And we got a lot of answers. So with still some answers left open. With questions left open, I'm sorry. But Fallout 76 is 4 times bigger than the world of Fallout 4. It is online only. We'll be running off of 100% dedicated servers. And is also co-op. So you can team up with, I think, up to 4 people, I think is what they had. And online only. So, and it is a survival type game. They did say it's more of a softcore survival. So it's not one of those games, if your character dies, you lose all your stuff and that's a wrap. The game doesn't function that way. It functions a lot better in the way that Fallout does. It's just people have to understand that the world, and he even said it, the world is not going to be populated with 100 to 200 plus people. It's just not going to do that. It's going to have dedicated servers that you may see 20 or 30 people in one world, and that's it. One of the cool announcements they had announced, though, during that is the fact that they're putting atomic bomb missile silos in the world. And you guys, and then all the players, including myself, can do whatever we want with them. If we want to launch nukes at opposing factions or people, all we have to do is find the launch codes. But here's the tricky part. The launch codes the sequence comes in different codes. So you have to find them all. And a faction that you may be dueling with or partner with may have parts of those launch codes that you need. So it's not like a matter of finding a key and then going to a silo and launching a missile. There's going to be more to it than that. And then you could drop a nuke or a bomb anywhere on the map that you want to. That's actually pretty interesting. I can see a group of us going into the world of Fallout 4 or Fallout 76 and immediately going to atomic bomb hunting. Once we get the codes, we're going to use that to protect ourselves. So I'm really, really looking forward to Fallout 76. Graphics, they look great. Gameplay looks really, really good, strong. It doesn't look like, or doesn't sound like VATs are going to be a big part of the game just because of the multiplayer that's involved with it. So Fallout 76 looks great. They did also announce that the Fallout mobile game, the Fallout Shelter, is also available now on PlayStation 4 and the Nintendo Switch. And they also announced a new mobile game called Elder Scrolls Blades, which plays like your traditional Elder Scrolls game, but on a smartphone. It'll come out and it's going to be free. So I'm looking forward to that. I think Blades actually kind of looks really, really good. The fact that it's free also is a double win for me. And then they showcased 2 more titles to close out the show that are going to be next generation games. So that means we've got a number of years before we actually see those games come through. Which means that it's probably going to be another 2 or 3 years before we see those games. And that was it Starlight? I think is what it was called. Which all they showed was just a logo. Not much in the way of what that game's going to be about. And then Elder Scrolls 6. There was no subtitle to it. It just said Elder Scrolls 6, a logo. Knowing that we're not going to get any gameplay for that either, but just the fact that the announcement was there made the crowd go crazy. And that's going to be a next generation game. So we got a lot to look forward to from Bethesda over the coming years. And there's going to be a lot more questions about the new Elder Scrolls coming out, their Starlight game, which is their new RPG. Single-player RPG. Which means the Fallout 76, which means that Fallout 76 is probably going to be the last Fallout game that we're going to see for a while. Which I'm okay with. I'm ready to go back to the world of Skyrim. Or not Skyrim, but the world of Elder Scrolls. So I give Bethesda an A- grade on their press conference. And then day 3 comes, and we start the day off with Square Enix. Square Enix kind of had like a Nintendo Direct type of show where they showcased off a couple of games. So we got a chance to see Hitman 2. We got a chance to see Kingdom Hearts. We also got a chance to see some gameplay of the Tomb Raider, Shadows of the Tomb Raider. But honestly, from Square Enix, that was roughly about it. We got nothing in the way of the Final Fantasy VII Remake. I mean, come on. Something's got to show about that, right? So there wasn't much in the way of the Square Enix conference. So honestly, I give the Square Enix one a C. And then we shift gears to right after that, we got Ubisoft. And Ubisoft had a decent show. They started off with Just Dance 2019. Okay, that's great. Then they showed some Beyond Good and Evil 2, which is looking better and better, I might add. So it's making me even more and more excited for it. Still no date. I think, Beyond Good and Evil 2 is kind of one of those games now that I need to see some sort of a release window before I believe that game is even real. I mean, sure, we get these trailers after trailers, but I want some truth to the matter that game's real or not. They showed a lot of the Division 2. We got a release date for it, which comes out in March. Division 2 actually looks really, really good. I love some of the changes that they made to that game. Looking forward to that one. They showed a lot of Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which honestly, I wasn't looking forward to Assassin's Creed. But then after I saw the gameplay from Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I was floored. That game actually looks really, really good. And I'll be getting that Assassin's Creed. That's for sure. We got a release date for that one. That's coming out in October. We also got a chance to see their new... They talked about... They showed it last year, which is Starfield? Starlink is what it was called. And Starlink is essentially like a spaceship game where you can actually buy the spaceships, build them, and put them into the game. So it's kind of like one of those toys to game games. And it was actually starting to look really, really good. And then they came out and surprised everybody that game is going to have a Nintendo Switch exclusivity with Star Fox. So Star Fox's ship, his character is going to be in the game, but only on the Nintendo Switch. Which I was like, okay. I was on the fence about buying the game anyway. And then I saw that and I was like, okay, you know what? I'm getting this on Switch. No question. It looks good. And I think with the addition of Star Fox in it, I think that's going to make it even more excellent. They showed off the new DLC with Donkey Kong for Mario and Rabbids, which I kind of hinted that was going to be the case anyway. But one disappointment I did not see at Ubisoft, and I was so looking forward to it, was Splinter Cell. I didn't see it at any of the press conferences. I had heard word that this game is actually getting done or is being worked on. I was kind of looking forward to some sort of an announcement for it. Never got one. I was so disappointed. I really wanted a Splinter Cell. And the fact that we didn't get one, I was kind of like, oh, that was a major bummer. I mean, like some of the other games that they showed, like The Crew 2, and I was like, okay, that's great for fans of that series. That's great, but I really wanted the Splinter Cell and did not get one. So I gave Ubisoft a B- for their press conference, and then came Sony. Sony's was a odd one, just because they started out and looked like a small venue. It was a set that they had designed to look like the set of the gameplay they were showing for The Last of Us Part 2. And don't get me wrong, The Last of Us Part 2 game looks pretty good. It looks like they flushed out a lot of the gameplay from the past game, which is a good thing. I'm still a little confused as to where the story is at. What happened since the events of the first game. There's still a lot to be answered there. But gameplay-wise, it looks really good. It's really dark, gory. You saw a lot more fighting with other people. Instead of actually like the creatures that you fought in the first one. I didn't see any of them in this game. Not yet, anyway. Not in the gameplay that they showed. A lot of the gameplay they showed were actually against other people. But it still kind of had that creepy horror feel to it. And then after they showed that off, got no release date, no release window. We didn't even get a release year. They then shifted gears. If you're watching it on live stream, you got about a 10 to 15 minute intermission where they showed a couple of trailers for like Black Ops and a couple other games that they had that we had already seen announcements for, like Days Gone. And essentially during that intermission, they were moving people out of that venue into another venue. Which if you were there at the show, you were like, this is ridiculous. We spend all the time waiting in line. It's hot outside. We finally get in. Then we have to get up, go back outside, get back into another long line until we're all seated inside of another venue. And then they showed off the another one of their exclusive titles, which was the Ghost Warrior. That actually looked really good, and the fact that the demo that they showcased was a side mission was even more exciting. So I was kind of really looking forward to. I'm kind of really looking forward to see where that game goes. Graphically, it looks beautiful, but again, no release date or window. And then they showed off a couple of other trailers for games coming out. They showed the big one for me. I mean, they did show like a new area in Kingdom Hearts 3 that you're going to get a chance to play. I think the gameplay that they showed off on the Sony presser for Kingdom Hearts 3 was probably the best out of the Square Enix and then the Xbox one. So I'm really looking forward to what Kingdom Hearts 3 has going for it. And then they hit me with probably one of my most excited, most anticipated games of the entire show. And that was the Resident Evil 2 remake. They finally announced it. It was coming. The trailer looked fantastic. The environment looked great. The trailer looked fantastic. I was like, okay, yes, this is what I want. And Resident Evil 2, and the only thing I can say is it is cross-platform, so it is on Xbox and PlayStation. So they couldn't claim the exclusivity on Resident Evil 2, which I'm okay with. I'll probably still end up getting it on PlayStation anyhow. But Resident Evil 2 remake, oh yeah, I was sold at that point. I was like, okay, you had redeemed yourself from a horrible presentation up to this point. And we actually got, and the best thing about it is we got a release date for it. Not a release window, not a release year, but an actual date. And it's coming sooner than a lot of people probably thought. It comes out in January. Yeah, it's not this year, but it does come out in January. And then they decided to close the show with Spider-Man. And I have got to tell you, I was a little bit on the shelf, or I was thinking about it. I was a little bit against it at one point when I saw Spider-Man last year at E3. I was like, it looks good. But then I saw Spider-Man this year and what they played and all the villains that I saw in this, and I was like, okay, you know what? Spider-Man looks phenomenal. Definitely got my vote for Game of the Show. Spider-Man looked great, and it comes out in September. But Spider-Man looked phenomenal. It's got a really, really kind of Arkham feel to it, which I'm okay with. Very, very fast-paced. But I think that's going to be great. I'm looking forward to that. So, honestly, Sony really kind of redeemed itself with Spider-Man. However, nothing at the Sony show except for Resident Evil and Spider-Man and Days Gone that they kind of alluded to had concrete dates. Didn't even have release windows. They showed Death Stranding. They showed finally some gameplay from Death Stranding. It looks good. I am still just as confused after watching that as I was when I saw the first announcement of the game. It didn't really answer much in the way of, okay, what type of game is this? I still don't know what type of game it is. I don't know what the story is. I'm sure once the game comes out, it'll all kind of start to make sense. But the trailers that they're showing, even the gameplay trailer, I still do not know what's going on. All I can say is it looks good. And it looks intriguing. And I want to see what happens. But honestly, that's Hideo Kojima for you. He does stuff like that all the time. You get trailers and you really have no idea what's going on until you actually start to play it. And I would not be surprised if Death Stranding is that same way. Unfortunately, we got no kind of a release window for it, which is telling me we're not going to probably see that for another couple years. Honestly, I would not be surprised if we don't see that game on their next generation console. That's how far out I think that game is. So if I had to give a letter grade to Sony, I would give it a C+, just because they didn't show much. They showed only a handful of games, only one of which is coming out this year. A lot of them don't even have release windows. And then their other big one comes out next year, which was the Resident Evil 2 to me. So I would give them about a C+, so somewhere right around there. And then came Nintendo, which came yesterday. And Nintendo had their typical Treehouse Nintendo Direct conference. They showed a few games. They got like Xenoblade Chronicles 2. They showed a little bit more about the Pokemon Pikachu and Eevee versions. They announced Super Mario Party, which was their really only surprise. And then they showed a lot. And when I say a lot, I mean more than half of their conference was Super Smash Brothers. Or Super Smash Brothers Ultimate, I'm sorry. And their big announcement and away from this was that the fact that every Smash Brothers character that has been in any game is available in this game. That's huge. That takes a lot of work. that every single character that's ever been in the Smash Brothers game is making it into Ultimate. And I'm okay with that. I think I'm looking forward to it. And a lot of what Nintendo showed actually comes out this year. So I was actually kind of really thrilled about that. Smash Brothers comes out in December. Super Mario Party I think is next year. I don't think that's this year. But like they showed Fire Emblem off. Octopath Travelers that comes out in July. July or August, I can't remember. I think it's July though. They showed a lot of those type of games off. A lot of their RPGs. The World Ends With You. They announced Fortnite, which is actually available after that show had ended. Paladins is available right now. And a couple of other side scrollers that they announced that were actually available that day. And Nintendo's always done great with that. Games that are available the day that they do their conference. And the fact that Fortnite is that, and I played Fortnite on the Switch. It plays great. I love it. I would actually probably rather play on the Switch right now than anything else. Because one, I could take it on the go with me anywhere I go. And many people say, yeah, you could do that on your smartphone. But yeah, you're right. But I like it on the Switch. I like how it feels. It feels good and plays good. So just off of the Nintendo one, I have to give it a C+ as well. Just because there's a lot of things that we were expecting that are missing. Where was Metroid? We got a logo and announcement for that last year. We got nothing on it this year. The Yoshi game. It's supposed to come out this year. We saw nothing of that. We saw nothing in the works for the 3DS. Just a handful of Switch games, and that was it. And the fact that over 60 to 70% of their conference was Smash Brothers, okay, that's a little much. You could have used some of that time to release other games or announce other games. But they didn't do that. And the fact that their only real big announcement besides Fortnite was Super Mario Party, I'm okay. So that's our grade report for E3. We hope you guys actually enjoyed the show. It was a little bit of a different feel this year. It seems like different publishers and different console manufacturers were taking a different approach to the way things are. Hopefully next year at E3, we don't have as many leaks going into the show, because I'm sure that took the wind out of the sails of a lot of people, especially when it came to the show. The leaks were a big problem. The previous and the announcements prior to the show were a big problem. So hopefully they get all that stuff worked out by next year. Hopefully the show can kind of return to form of what it used to be and what it used to mean to be on stage at E3. It seemed like it was kind of missing from the show this year. The excitement level wasn't there. The game announcements, to me, were not there. There was not really a moment in this show that I looked at and said, that was shocking. There was really none. Everything we kind of already got a heads up was coming prior to the show. I would have probably been more floored with the Resident Evil 2 remake and Devil May Cry 5 had I not known those games were already coming anyway. Devil May Cry got leaked before the show started. The domain was actually purchased before the show started, so that leaked. The Resident Evil 2 remake has been talked about for so long that it was just only a matter of time before we got a video on it. That's what I want to see from next year's E3. More excitement. More shock value. Something to leave us after the show and be like, okay, you know what? I've got to rush down or rush to my local retailer and put in a pre-order for this as soon as possible. Hopefully they can get that fixed by next E3. But I want to thank you guys for listening. This is my post-E3 show. I wanted to give a letter grade to all the conferences that took place. I wanted to kind of grade the show so everybody had an idea of what the show really, really was. I thank you guys for listening. Make sure you comment, like, and subscribe to the show. Also, make sure you follow us on all our different avenues. This show, as well as the GSN podcast, are available on iTunes and Google Play. We are also on Podbean, as well as a lot of other podcast avenues. Make sure you follow us on our website. You can subscribe to the website as well. We're www.GameNightLounge.wordpress.com. We are on Facebook at The Game Night Lounge. We are on Twitter at The Game Night Lounge, or you can follow me personally on Twitter at KODXFactor. And we are on YouTube at The Game Night Lounge or The Game Night Lounge channel. All of our Let's Play videos, reviews, our podcasts that we do are also available in there as well. So if you want to watch us on YouTube, you're more than welcome to. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. We would greatly, greatly appreciate it. And until next week, everybody, I am KODX Factor. This is The Jump Off. We are part of the Game Night Lounge Media Network, and all the guests that appear on this show and future shows are part of the Game Night Lounge Media Network as well. Thank you guys for listening. I am KODX Factor, and game on, everybody.